What's going on, everybody? It's that time again. The AllSooners podcast, post-game edition at the stadium in Norman. Josh Callaway, John Hoover, Ryan Chapman. I think it's 156. Does that sound right? I think that's right.
157?
156, 157, something like that.
Post games are odd now, so 157.
157. How about that? What we do know, and
it feels
what
like it's 157 in the morning, but
it
it's
does.
not.
It's been a day. It's been a day, but we're back in our usual studio that we've commandeered and made our own. ESPN Plus people, by the way, made this thing disgusting. If you're not familiar, we do this in the TV broadcast booth, and ESPN Plus obviously had the game today, and we came in here, and it's nasty in here. So, Ryan Leaf, man,
it's
come on.
not our fault.
Not our fault, OU. If you're anybody's trying to find the culprit, it's not the AllSooners.
We actually cleaned some stuff up, so I'm just saying.
We did. We tidied it a little bit.
Including food.
By Brian definitely just picked up a sandwich he found in here and started eating it. That actually happened. But that's where we're at. That's what kind of a day it's been. He doesn't care if he gets diseases. I'm just going to eat the sandwich anyway. But it's been that kind of day in Norman. Who's gone? Oklahoma fans.
Keep going, stretch it out.
I don't know if do we want to stitch this together? I can go. Oklahoma lost today. We're at that point, folks. We're at that point. It's been that kind of a season. You know that now. If you've been with us, if you've watched this team week to week, Oklahoma loses big. Not loses big, but loses to Baylor today, 38-35.
Sorry, I'll stop.
Loses 38-35.
3
yeah,
picks.
I mean, initial
Can't
thoughts
stop
on
the
this.
run.
Yeah,
Coach didn't want to answer questions. Didn't have answers. That's all we know.
yeah.
Fan base is not happy.
We'll dive into all angles of it. That's the point of this show.
Sorry, that was unprofessional.
Who's tired? We're tired. We're all tired. But here we are.
5 this morning.
Oklahoma loses today. They turned over 3 times. They failed a 4th down conversion. They missed a field goal. A lot of shoot yourself in the foot things.
All in the first half.
All in the first half. Brent Venables, it was really kind of he drove it home big time in his post-game press conference of, making sure to give credit to Baylor, but also feeling like, man, we shot ourselves in the foot so bad today. And hard to argue with him. I mean, the turnovers, the missed field goal, penalties at inopportune times, not being able to get off the field on big 4th downs. Oklahoma, as bad as it looks at times, and it's weird. We talked about this when we went to shoot the wrap. As bad as it looks at times, and you look back and this game ends and you're saying, man, that was kind of ugly. If you just change a couple things, they probably win today. They're a weird team right now.
You did a great job on that open.
I did everything I could to stay
You
locked
held
in.
it together.
It was hard.
You held it together like a pro, and I appreciate that. I don't know where to begin with this team. They're 5-4 now. When's the last time Oklahoma lost 4 games? Well, yeah, we know when it was. It's been a while, but
2014, right?
Yeah, 2014. They're now 2-4 in conference play. They go to West Virginia next week. West Virginia was lifeless today in Ames, Iowa. I just don't know what to make of Oklahoma right now. Dylan Gabriel had a number of opportunistic passes that he could have made, and 3 of them were intercepted in the first half. I think when that happens, and you leave those 3 possessions, you leave the 4th down that Josh mentioned, you leave the field goal at the end because of a 15-yard penalty and the time winding down. You have to kick a 55-yarder. You leave 5 possessions on the field empty with nothing to show for them. Basically, the other team gets the football after you failed on five different possessions. You're still only down 3 points. And I didn't understand why Oklahoma didn't come out with a little more fight, a little more pep in their step, whatever it is, a little more attitude, a little more toughness, make some adjustments. Brent Venables talked about physicality and toughness and discipline in the postgame a lot. Check out AllSooners.com and look for the Brent Venables press conference. He talked about those 3 things a lot. I asked him, I said, why didn't you have them? It's week 9 for this football team. Why didn't you have them? And he said, we've been saying these things for 11 months now. Okay, it's week 9, game 9 of your first season. You've been here for 11 months. why aren't these things showing up? The answer that he gave us was, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's got to be disheartening for him as well.
Brent Venables sounded like the Survivor tagline at the end of the game: outplayed, out-executed, out-coached. And I think that summed up the first half perfectly, because you can see there is talent. You can see the warts of the Baylor defense, especially through the air. And then, like you guys mentioned, a couple of tip drills. No credit to a tip ball on the third interception. That was just a plain overthrow. Whatever happened, Dylan Gabriel should have thrown a fourth interception. Baylor dropped the easiest one that he threw straight to them. So you can say tip drill all you want on the first two. When the two other throws were that awful, you get no room for any kind of weaseling out, anything like that. Another overthrow where Marvin Mims had had the DB beat for a touchdown, even though they connected on the first one. All that stuff, and then Hoover, you asked why did they not come out with more fire? What's the adjustment? All that in the second half. If the run defense sucks, the run defense sucks. That's not changing. They don't have the personnel to play the run well. We've seen that all year long. This team coming into the game had played, before Baylor, a bad offense over compared to college football in Iowa State, Nebraska, Kent State, UTEP. 4 of their 8 games were against those teams, which are not juggernauts, and they were still 115th against the run. You add a good Baylor rushing attack, and that's how first play out of the gate, or first drive out of the gate, you have a 32-yard run up down the sideline by Neighbors, because the run defense stinks. 4-man front, 3-man front, doesn't matter. It stinks. There is no adjustment to not having the horses up front.
Brent Venables had a very different tenor in his postgame today
Sassy.
than the previous losses. I think the other losses, to me, obviously you guys can say yourself, but to me he felt more, I don't know, he seemed like he came to postgame after TCU and Kansas State is more kind of bummed, like not defeated, that's a little too extreme I think, but a little more just kind of somber, like, man, that stinks, like I would have really liked to win that, Today he was mad. He was mad, he was defensive, and a couple questions today. He got a little testy, nothing crazy, but he had a little bit of an issue. And also, not for nothing, maybe it's related. This is the quickest he came to post game. It was like 30 minutes, which is still a long time, but a lot faster than a lot of other games. After the Tex game, it was like a full hour plus before he started post game. Today he got in there pretty quick. He wanted to get it over with. Today was at least my takeaway from that, and he was frustrated. And I don't know if it's. We're going to find out, and we talked about it after whatever game where I made the comparison to Porter Moser and the basketball team last year, where it just felt like Porter a lot of times wanted to just say, I don't have the guys necessary to do what I want to do. But when Brent Venables says stuff like, we've talked about discipline for 11 months, that's pretty much his way of saying, like, I've done everything I feel like I can do. They have to do the rest themselves.
We don't have those guys. That's what he's trying to
right.
say. He's
That's
telling us and telling the public and the fans we don't have those guys. So
right.
Without saying those words, because these are your guys. Whether they're the ones you wanted or not, these are the guys that you have, and so they're your guys. You can't throw them under the bus. You got to play with who you got.
Yeah, and keep in mind too that it's not even necessarily a talent thing, because it's more than that. And we talked about before what Lincoln took. And all that was overstated, and it was. But that doesn't change the fact that the roster left. And Alex Grinch, Lincoln Riley built roster is very different than what a Brent Venables and Jeff Levy, and all this staff built roster look like. These aren't the type of players necessarily, top to bottom, that Brent would have. You know what I mean? So he's trying to fit square peg in a round hole in some cases. And I don't know. The answers aren't really there right now for Oklahoma.
Baylor ran the football 261 yards rushing on the ground, and they did it a number of different ways. But what stands out to me is number of times Oklahoma had third down and fourth down opportunities to get stops on defense. Baylor ran the football wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted, however they wanted. And they finished with 114 yards rushing in the fourth quarter. Now, extrapolate that over 4 quarters, and you've got 450 yards rushing. So that's how bad the fourth quarter was for Oklahoma. They were powerless, and that's the thing that I think frustrates Brent more than anything. Or maybe I'm just putting words in his mouth or whatever. But the fact that they were powerless to stop those guys. At some point, I might have tweeted this. I put it in the blog, in the live blog. At times this felt like a varsity high school football team going up in a scrimmage against the JV. That's what it looked like. Like, we're going to run and we're going to get 11 yards on this play, and then we're going to get 6 yards on this play, and then we're going to get 9 yards on that play, and there's nothing you can do about it because you're JV. That's just what it looked like.
Well, and you talk about the frustration. We'll spin that to the other side of the ball, too. As far as these are the guys you've got, we've seen what the show looks like for Oklahoma without Dillon Gabriel, right? We've seen what this offense looks like without Dillon Gabriel. He was not good today. I don't care what the numbers say as far as the non-interception passes and all that stuff, but Dillon Gabriel was not good. Balls were sailing high. It was so bad that Hoover and I were up in the press box, and Josh, I don't know what it looked like at field level to you, but you could see that the flags that are on top of the scoreboard in the south end zone were very, you could tell it was strong wind the entire way from south to north, so you're either throwing directly into it or it's at your back. And every time Oklahoma was moving toward the north end zone, I just turned to John and I was like, did Dillon Gabriel not learn anything from the spring game about how to handle the wind? Because everything was sailing so bad that it looked like he's a guy that came from Orlando, where wind's not really a huge ordeal.
Or Hawaii,
and that he never has adjusted or acclimated over these last 11 months to the wind in Oklahoma, which seems ludicrous, but that's what it looked like when he's sailing stuff left, right, and center. And it's obvious. That's the only option Oklahoma has at quarterback. And he threw you into, again, the 2 tip drills. I think he maybe forced that ball to Braden Willis, so I want to give him half credit for the interception, even though Willis tipped it back up. The first one, it is what it is. The third one was just a terrible throw, and then again, he should have thrown a fourth one. That's bad quarterback play in those moments, and you knew coming into this game that Baylor has a bad passing defense compared to what they've been in the past. It's not like 110 or anything like that. It's not as bad as Oklahom's run defense, but last week, that Baylor defense went out and got 5 interceptions. That's their get-out-of-jail-free card, and Dillon Gabriel, time and time again, put the ball in harm's way, and it proved to be the difference.
This game feels, to me at least, very similar to the Kansas State game in that the opportunities were there, and Gabriel didn't play well in that game either. Missed a lot of throws, missed some big plays, and probably, quarterbacks of very recent OU past probably do enough to win these games. I know that's an incredibly high bar, but you got to imagine that your Baker Mayfields, your Kyler Murray, your Jalen Hurts, even probably your Caleb Williams find a way to make enough plays in a game like this to get you over the hump. Because at the end of the day, defense wasn't good, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. They can't stop the run to save their life, but they had the chance to take the lead in the fourth quarter and didn't do it. And Oklahoma was conservative. Brent Venables stuck to his guns on that fourth quarter punt, which I was a little not super surprised, but a little surprised with the first play of the quarter, right? It was very beginning of the fourth quarter. On the plus side of the 50, again, punted it into the end zone, so didn't net hardly anything. That's happened like a trillion times this year. But yeah, it's just like whenever you're in games like this where everything's not totally clicking, your defense isn't playing great, but you're running the ball well, you just need your quarterback to step up and win it for you. And Dillon Gabriel hasn't done that twice now. Kansas State and Baylor, both these games have been very winnable, and they just didn't make the plays.
Did all three of his interceptions? No, the first one was in the first quarter. The next 2 were in the second quarter with the wind at his back. The overthrow to Mims when Mims had his man beat so bad was in the second quarter with the wind at his back. Yeah. Both of those other interceptions, he's just, the wind just seems to, on that overthrow to Mims, he threw that like a 25-yard in. He threw that like a low dart, and the wind just carried it right past the guy where the receivers were. So, yeah, you're right, Ryan. I think he's still trying to adjust to how the wind blows in Oklahoma, because it was straight line. It was out of the south end zone. And he did better throwing into the wind. Some quarterbacks do that, throw better when it's going into the wind. But you're right, Josh. You'd like to see him make a winning play here or there at the end of a game, and that hasn't happened a lot yet.
No, it hasn't.
Well,
in any of the games.
No, yeah, right.
It's a high bar, but isn't this the Defend the Standard program, right? One of the 2 that exists. The other one got drummed by Notre Dame today. But if the standard's the standard, right? That's what Oklahoma quarterback play is, and that's either you live up to it or you get criticized.
It's
right,
feeling
wrong, otherwise.
It's feeling like Spencer Rattler right now.
Yeah,
good. Not the reason they're losing, but also can you just help us get over the hump, please?
And 2, we talked about this. So the first interception, which I'm not putting at the feet of Dillon Gabriel, best case scenario for Oklahoma on that play, that was going to be an incompletion. It looked like there was just a total whiff on the left side of the line. I haven't watched it back yet, but just remembering it back, that's what it looked like. Okay, so that ball falls into the grass and it's incomplete. Best case scenario. That was third down. OU was backed up and third and long, was not going to go for it. That was going to be a 50-second 3-and-out against Baylor, who wants to hold onto the football. They're really good time of possession-wise, all that stuff. How does that make any sense? So whether that was Brent Venables who gave that go-ahead, whether that was Jeff Levy who dialed up 3 plays, that it was just so disjoint and bad, and we only really saw the tempo work one time.
Yeah, that's right.
All game long. So, again, that's a misevaluation of what needed to happen offensively for the entire team to succeed, because after Baylor just dragged you down the field on the opening possession of the game, who looked at that? Anyone. Not a great football mind like Jeff Levy or things like that, but all of us could look at that and said, well, hey, they probably need to take 2 minutes off the clock here just to give the defense either A, time to adjust or time to catch their breath, because they just got dragged down the field. And lo and behold, defense has no time to adjust. Baylor's up 14-7, and the Sooners are playing from behind the rest of the game.
And, the flip of that, at the end of the game, I thought OU showed an extreme lack of urgency at the end of the game. They were taking way too much time.
That was
that's
the
what
longest drive of the game, 5 minutes, 10 seconds.
Terrible time for it. Terrible time for it.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sitting there, I'm like, you have time, but, they left themselves where the defense had to either get a 3-and-out or maybe 1 first down was all they could survive. And, the way your defense had played, what made you think that was – you need to give yourself as much wiggle room as possible for your defense to give up, some first downs but still be able to get a stop and get you the ball back. You were only down 3, so they could have got – all you got to do was hold a field goal and you had another shot, but you left yourself no clock to work with. That was weird to me. Like, this super tempo offense all year, and then now we're taking all day to run play. We're doing little 3-yard dunks. It made no sense.
Now, think about this. I laid it out for you earlier. 3 interceptions in the first half, a 4th down that didn't convert, missed field goal. That's 5 empty possessions. They also had 5 77-yard touchdown drives, 75-yard touchdown drives. 5 drives of 75 yards or more touchdown drives. That should have been enough to win the game. That should have been plenty to win the game. The defense needs to do a better job of just carrying their water.
Yeah.
But let me ask you guys this. As long as we're talking about Dillon Gabriel, we'll hit the defense in a second. What did you guys think of the fact that he didn't come to post-game interviews after his worst game as a Sooner? Does that bother anybody?
Well, I
kind of want to cut him a break.
I don't like it.
It's
well,
okay.
I'll say that. I don't like
You've
it.
come in for every interview. You came in the week after your concussion. We appreciate it. I kind of want to cut him a break and say it doesn't really bother me. He had a tough day. I didn't want to be the one to sit there and ask him, what's with the interceptions today? You know what I mean?
Well,
it's not like he was going to be able to answer those anyway.
You're the quarterback at Oklahoma, and
that's the good point.
And
that's the standard.
The other thing is, what has been yelled and screamed and forced down our – how many times – how dead would we be if we had to sit and take a shot in every Brett Venables press conference every time the word accountability came up?
Yeah.
You cannot be – again, we've talked about this before. You can't be the accountability program, and when you have your worst performance as a starting quarterback, you dip out.
Yeah. I like Dillon Gabriel a lot. And as a guy, we've talked to him all season long. The quarterback is not like the rest of the team. It's essentially treated like a coach. Whenever we do post-game, at the podium, it's Brent Venables, the 2 coordinators, and then Gabriel. All the other players just kind of break off and you can go. But he's treated, he's the quarterback. He goes at a podium. It's a big deal when the quarterback talks. It's a different. And we are all sitting there in the press conference room waiting for Dillon Gabriel to come in, and we were informed he's not coming. He left. And, again, I like Dillon Gabriel. He's been good to talk to, and I don't, I'm not going to rip him, but I don't like it. I think it lacks accountability. You need to go answer questions after the game.
Yeah.
That's part of the gig.
Here's the thing. Part of the gig, exactly. Here's the thing with that. It doesn't I'm not sitting here screaming, why didn't I get any quotes from Dillon Gabriel?
Right.
I'm fine with that. If I'm Dillon Gabriel and I just threw 3 interceptions, I want to go stand in front of the cameras and I want to take the tough questions because of the accountability. The whole thing that Brent Venables has been preaching this whole 11 months. I want to, because I'm the Oklahoma quarterback. I want to go out there and explain myself. And then what is that going to do? Is it going to appease the media? Who cares? Is it going to make the fans happy? Who cares? No, it's going to maybe congeal the team. Maybe bring the team together and say, that's my quarterback. That's Terrell Owens, and they're sobbing about his quarterback. That's my quarterback. That's what you want your guys to do after a 3-interception game, not, hey, I'm going to go to Hoover's YouTube page and I'm going to see what Dillon Gabriel had to say. Why is he not uploading the video? What did Dillon Gabriel? Oh, Dillon didn't talk? Dillon didn't talk today? You don't want this to be the one time that you don't talk and your teammates go to YouTube looking for your video and it's not there.
Yeah. No, I mean, and again, he maybe has a good reason.
Maybe there's a reason, sure.
Maybe there's a good reason.
Family's in town.
It's especially surprising considering that all we've heard the whole time from the second he got to Norman was how big of a leader he is and all that stuff. So it's surprising to me that he would skirt on the post game. We'll see if I don't know. It's a weird deal. It's a move that, again, that high standard. No way Baker Mayfield would have done that. No way Jalen Hurts certainly would have done that. Kyler Murray didn't really do a lot of losing, so he didn't have a chance to really ever have to do it. But I don't think he would have done it either. It's something that maybe people got on Spencer Rattler. Something that sounds like that maybe he might have done.
I seem to remember Baker showed up for interviews the Tuesday after his arrest in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
Guys, we need to go into the past. Davis Bevel sat up at the
OU Texas game.
at the DS for OU Texas.
Yeah. When that one, I don't even know why they did that to that kid.
That was weird.
Yeah.
That was
so.
rough.
I mean that. Davis Bevel has underwent as many losing press conferences as the starting quarterback at Oklahoma as Dillon Gabriel has.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, because and Dillon answered questions after the Kansas State game.
And of course he's not going to come out of TCU with the injury, so that's not. And there's no reason for him to talk after Texas, right?
Right.
Davis Bevel was embarrassed by his own coaching staff.
Yeah.
At OU Texas, and he sat up there and he was a part of the post-game press conference.
Yeah, he answered a question or two. Didn't have many to throw his way, but he did answer them. He sat up there and he took it. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, maybe he has a good reason. We all like Dillon Gabriel. He's been good to talk to all season, but that was a little disappointing. If it was just a pure decision, it's a little disappointing. We will do one positive thing on the offense before we get out of here, or go to defense, I should say.
How about two positive things?
Eric Gray's a monster. I mean, I don't know. We're beating a dead horse, but in a good way. He's so good. He's a huge part. He's the best player on the team right now, in my opinion, at least. And Marvin Mims had the bounce back we all expected he would. It feels like, and I said this before, it feels like he can get open over the top anytime he wants. Like literally, if you just run deep ball to Marvin Mims, like 90% of your plays, you're going to be in good shape because he's really hard to get over the top. But so he bounced back, had the nice long touchdown as well. But him and Eric Gray, I mean, what a duo they are. It's too bad that they're both going to end their OU careers on disappointing seasons for the team. Because those are really, really special players.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know what else to add to that.
Right.
Eric Gray's kind of taken over the offense. He's mature and he's like a coach on the field and he's a leader. And he came in today and gave his press conference a couple of minutes, whatever it was, 4 or 5 minutes, answering questions after another 100-yard day. He is second in the Big 12 in rushing right now. No, third behind Bijan and Deuce Vaughn. Third in the conference in rushing right now.
Yeah,
hell of a year. And then you're right about Mims. It's like when I watch the game a lot through binoculars, so I'm down here looking at Dillon Gabriel. He sets his feet and throws, and I said, I bet that's Mims. I went like this, and I was like, wait, yep, that's Mims. And then he caught it wide open. It's just, you just know, you just feel when he sets his feet and chunks it like that with confidence, yeah, that's Marvin Mims.
Yeah, I think the best thing you can say about Eric Gray, Marvin Mims was awesome, but Eric Gray specifically, it was clear OU did not trust Dillon Gabriel to do anything in the second half. Dave Aranda's a really good defensive coordinator, and Oklahoma almost still won, almost got enough production out of Eric Gray specifically in the second half when they basically came out and said, we are going to be one-dimensional because no one trusts Dillon Gabriel to throw this football because of how bad he was in the first half.
They're great, and they didn't have a second running back option today, really. I mean, Javonte Barnes didn't play. He warmed up but didn't play. And Marcus Major,
Jeff Levy
what
said,
a weird OU career for this kid. He didn't do much again today.
Levy said on Monday, he hasn't been 100% healthy since the non-conference.
True, and he was off to a great start before.
Yeah. And Levy's what he said is the biggest thing for Marcus is to get him 100% healthy. And the fact of the matter, like, he's just not going to be 100% healthy until if Oklahoma gets to a bowl game. You know what I mean? Because of how physical this game is. It's just not going to happen.
I forgot that we had a Trey West carry today.
That's right.
Where did that come from?
Trey West got a carry. Tommy Walker got involved.
You got a couple.
When Tommy Walker was getting carries on the first couple of drives, it was like, uh-oh, that's not great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, weird day for the offense. At the end of the day, they still scored points. They had big plays. But the turnovers are bad. And
Braden Willis,
I don't know.
Drake Stoops, Jalil Farouk all got carries. I thought the play calling was pretty solid in the first half, and that they weren't trying to run into that brick wall that was Siaki Ika and those guys.
Except for the most important play of the first half.
Except for that 4th down and 1.
With Major.
With Marcus Major, their short yardage guy.
Makes no
Bro,
sense.
I'm bootlegging there. I told y'all, I like the bootleg in that situation. Play action, spin the quarterback out. He's only got to get 1 yard. That's only 3 feet.
Yeah.
There are many options outside of run it right at the massive 360-pound defensive lineman.
Preeminent
With your
nose guard in the country.
With your hampered number 3 running back, in reality.
Yep.
Weird one. That was a weird move. But yeah, Oklahoma offense, I don't know. It had its moments still, and I feel very confident, and it may not be a trendy thing to say right now. I think that Jeff Lebby, when he has all his guys in here that he's probably going to get, Jackson Arnold, wink, wink, is going to be really good. I do think that this offense is going to be really, really good in due time. He just needs more players.
Much like Kansas State, it boils down to a couple of plays, and those couple of plays were the plays are there, and Dylan Gabriel didn't make them against Kansas State. And here it's if you just throw the ball away a couple of times as opposed to throwing interceptions, then maybe it's better. And again, I'm in my head counting 2 interceptions because the dropped one was the most egregious throw of the day on the far sideline.
Yeah. Brent Venables said in the postgame they made the critical plays. He was talking about them going 3 for 3 on 4th down. He said they made the critical plays, we didn't. That sums it up.
That it does. And too many mistakes. Good teams will beat you when you make those many mistakes. That's what Baylor did. Defensively, guys, I don't even know. I mean, we came in, we did the midweek show, and we previewed this game, and we said that this looks like a nightmare on paper because it doesn't take a genius at all to see that Baylor runs the ball really, really well, and Oklahoma run defense has been well documented, not good this season. The crazy part is that it wasn't Richard Reese, like we talked about in the wrap. 4 carries for 7 yards. It was Craig Williams. Monster game for this kid out of nowhere. 192 yards, 2 touchdowns, almost 8 yards per carry for him. A lot of times just untouched for 10 yards.
I was going to say, I don't know what everyone's so mad about. This Oklahoma defense all year long has reverted back to whatever quarterback they play. Congratulations, they look like a Heisman contender. And today it was Craig Williams, the running back, who looked like a Heisman contender. Blake Shapen looked like a dud. So I think that's major improvement. Obviously, tongue-in-cheek. You got run all over by a guy named Squirrel.
Like I said, 5 drives of 75 yards or more that produced touchdowns. You had opportunities to add to that. You're playing against a team that was pretty one-dimensional. Blake Shapen only had 26 yards passing, something like that. 132 yards passing. That was a one-dimensional team, and they still couldn't stop them. And they had a backup running back. They were featuring a backup running back. So, I'm not sure what the answer is for Oklahoma's defense, but that's what I think Brent Venables was the most agitated about was when I asked him about tackling and physicality. I don't know.
Yeah, this is one of those games, and I think you asked after the Texas game, I believe, is OU soft? If they felt soft in this one. Baylor was just running it in their face. And the tackling, I don't have any, advanced metrics. I'm just going off the feel of the game, having watched it from field level. It felt like the tackling was awful in this game.
Especially the second half and particularly the fourth quarter. There were times where it didn't look like the running back was doing anything except covering up the football.
Just running through arm tackles.
Just running, just moving in one direction, and nobody was tackling him. That happened a lot in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, this isn't the perfect thing in the world, right? It's really hard to condense a quarterback's play into one number. Baylor put 38 points on the board, and Blake Shapen's QBR was 23.7.
Very bad.
Let's know the run defense
that shows you how leaky Oklahoma was. 192 of those rushing yards came on 9 plays. 9 plays of 10 yards or more. You can't have that. You're not going to survive against a team like Baylor doing that. And so it's clear that they're getting no production from the ends. So that's thing number one. That was the big question, right? Alex Grinch, what did he want? Speed D. He intentionally undersized fast guys on the defensive line. That was a strategy. Brent Venables is a more traditional as far as what he's asking for height weight from his front three, front four, all that stuff. And it was never going to happen in one offseason. I don't care how good Jerry Schmidt is, and this is not a knock on him, he was not going to be able to put enough weight that made sense on anyone on the defensive line for in one offseason Brent Venables to have a defensive line the size that he wants. And I think you're seeing that most on the edge, that Reggie Grimes, Ethan Downs have been non-factors since conference play started because Big 12 offenses are looking and saying, well, we can wipe those guys out. That they're not doing the just stunting and twisting and shooting the gap, all that stuff. They're trying to play straight-up defense, and they're getting moved off the point of attack very easy. So there were times, very few times, that Redmond looked fine, Coe, Kelly, those guys looked okay, but you're not getting enough production for those guys on the interior to make up for the fact that you don't have difference makers at either end. You don't have difference makers up the middle in Danny Stutzman or David Agwebu because they have good moments, but for the most part, arm tackles are running through all those guys.
Yep. And we're killing the defense here, and maybe appropriately so. We talked about 9 plays of 30 yards or more.
10. Nine plays of 10 yards or more accounted for 190-ish.
9 plays accounted for 190 total yards.
That's
Having
just the
said all
rushing
that,
yards.
and that's correct and that's appropriate, the offense gave them 10 points. The offense gave Baylor 10 points. A 3-play, 26-yard drive produced a touchdown, uncontested by the defense, by the way. And then the other one was a field goal drive where they stopped them, but after another interception. The offense gave them, Dylan Gabriel gave them, with the interceptions, 10 points. So Oklahoma, all things being equal, should have been able to win this game, even giving up all those rushing yards.
I was going to say, one of those picks, backbreaker, because it came right after OU's pick. It was like 3 plays later. Basically just washed out OU's lone turnover in this game.
Well, that's totally fair and did happen, absolutely. The flip side of that is, if you want to take the offense, giving them short field, stuff like that out of it, Baylor was 3 for 3 on 4th downs. Okay? The first time they converted a 4th down, they marched straight down the field, and 4 plays later, that was on the plus side of the 50 on the first drive of the game.
Yep.
They marched 4 more plays, touchdown. Defense just wilted. 4 plays. Demoralizing. Well, and that's mental toughness that's not there. The second time it happened, Billy Bowman bailed the defense out with an interception on the second drive that they had a 4th down conversion, but Baylor was creeping up on the red zone. They were going to score had Billy Bowman not caught that. And the third one, it was the 4th and 1 on Baylor's own 29-yard line where Squirrel Williams gets in there and gets 2 yards. They get another couple of plays, and then Baylor reeled off 4 straight plays that got first downs. It wasn't immediately after the 4th down play. They got into 3rd down, I think, and then they had 4 straight plays of first down, drive-ins and a touchdown. Defense, hey, it's 1 play. You don't get the 4th down stop. You cannot let the opposing offense then proceed to march the rest of the way down the field. That's 14 points that's totally on the defense.
That
so
was huge.
The 10 points off turnovers, absolutely. It shows there were problems on all sides of the ball today. You missed field goal. You have Turk not putting the punt at the 5-yard line. Instead, he puts it at the 1-yard line. And instead of Mims having to come in and bat it down at the 1, he's having to go into the end zone, which results in the touchback. Like, no one is absolved from fault for this. And it just shows you that this team, it's not just dirt poor, like, oh my gosh, it's not the Texas game, right? Because you look at Kansas State, you look at this game, and you go, there's so many areas where they could have made plays, but the fact of the matter is every time they need one, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I keep looking at it. It's just 4 for 13 on 3rd downs they held them, but then 3 for 3 on 4th. I mean, that's really hard to explain. Brent Venables, I think, was asked about that. I think he was asked about it.
He kind of brought it up on his own.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. And like we said, Brent Venables, we've been talking about discipline for 11 months. That was the most telling quarter maybe the whole day, the whole post game to me. It's just a frustrated coach.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Physicality?
You're like,
I don't know.
Why?
Why does another team ever be more physical than my team?
And I don't mean to be a smartass here, but as I said to Dean Blevins when he said, Brent's getting a little snippy, I said, when you tell the answer to a question is you don't know, the fact of the matter, they're paying him $7 million a year to find these things out, to figure them out on the fly. Again, I'm willing to cut him some slack. He's a first-year head coach. He's a first-year guy dealing with a lot of things that he's never had to deal with before. So I get it.
Yeah, it's so funny because we've talked about it to where we beat it to death, like at an all-time rate, the complimentary football thing. But this team, it's so funny because that was such a focus and such a talking point, and this team plays literally the exact opposite. Whatever the opposite of the word complimentary is, that's what they do.
They
the
play
offense,
insulting football.
The offense never helps the defense. The defense never helps the offense. The special teams never help. Like it has at times, obviously. Like last week, there was a lot of that. But like today, it's just like offense is scoring some points in the first half. Defense can't seem to do anything. Defense finds its footing a little bit second half. Offense can't capitalize on opportunities. They're turning it over. It's just like, my God, could one side of the ball just help out the other side? Like I just mentioned, defense gets a big interception. Dylan Gabriel then throws one right. It's like they just never can be in sync all at one time. Really, today was kind of a microcosm for the whole season in that respect. 4 losses now.
Well, and I was joking with you guys that the way that this has happened has become this Oklahoma team will be a very interesting offseason fodder because you can paint whatever picture you want, right? Last year we talked about, well, if they had all these one-possession games, close games, very easily could have gone the other way. This is what that looks like, where every time Oklahoma made the plays last year, they did make the plays this year. And OU fans, whatever you want to do, if you're a very optimistic OU fan, you know what you're going to get into the offseason? You're going to watch that K-State game back. You're going to go, those 3 plays, another year in the system, they make those plays. Today, it felt like a billion plays, 5 or 6, but it felt like so many opportunities in the first half especially to play poorly like that and still come out and go into the locker room ahead. And you're like, okay, you can look at those 2 games and be like, oh, this team could very easily have only lost the 2 games that Dylan Gabriel didn't finish. Or you can look at it and say it's something inherent that when they had the player the caliber of Caleb Williams or stuff like that, or Lincoln Riley, and we're going to bring up the taboo, they just won those games. That was a tenet of Lincoln Riley football. It was ugly. It was shootouty. It's what USC's doing right now, and they just won a ton of them. They lost one every year, but they won a ton of them, and we'll have to see if Brent Venables can find a way to, in the interim, slap a Band-Aid on that. That'll kind of be the question this offseason.
I mentioned it in the postgame wrap that we did, which you can watch on AllSooners.com and on Hoover's YouTube page. I feel like this loss locks the season in as a disappointment. It was already teetering on that. A lot of fans already felt it was one. Trevor Knight, remember, said after like the TCU game that the season was already a failure. I think it wasn't quite there. I mean, for all the things that Ryan was kind of just referring to, you could kind of talk yourself into, well, Gabriel didn't play the Texas game. He got hurt early TCU. Kansas State, they were right there. Like, if you finish strong and you got to 9 wins, you go take care of whatever bowl game you're in, like that's a lot to take into the offseason to sell yourself on. And you can still kind of do that if you finish strong, but this loss was this one stinks. This is one you didn't want to lose, especially considering Baylor's in a similar spot. They came in with 3 losses of their own. This isn't as good as a Baylor team that we thought they were going to be coming in. Now you're 5-4. The best you can hope for is 8-4, which feels far fetched to win all 3 of these based off what I mean. Why would you expect that right now? Is that how you guys see it? I mean, just this season is kind of there is no salvaging it. All you can do is finish as good as you can and try to right the wrongs in the offseason. But as far as this season being considered a success, that ship has way sailed.
What was Trevor's choice of words? Failed season?
I think he said failure, right? Didn't he? I'll look it up.
Something like that. Yeah, failed season. It is. If you finish 8-5, 9, even 9-4 at this point, if you're good enough to finish out and win the rest of your games and go 9-4, that's not what anybody in Norman wants. That's not what anybody in Sooner Nation wants. So yeah, it's a rebuild. At least you're not. It's not a losing season. I mean, it still could be. Don't get me wrong. They're 5-4 and they could be 5-7. There's no doubt about that.
He said it's a failed season already.
Failed season.
That was
already.
after the TCU game.
After the TCU game.
Which,
before
at
Texas.
that time, it didn't feel like it was that bad yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it did, but not like this.
The only thing that you can salvage is if you lose no more recruits. And
that's the important part.
And we 6th ranked class in the country.
And we were on the road to Ames. I know that he's not the 5-star whatever that's going to come in and change the face of your defense, but on the road to Ames that Friday night, we had to pull over in the middle of Missouri because Caleb Spencer flipped to Miami, right? So
is that the beginning, or is it just kind of a one-off?
Is that a one-off, or is that a trend of 2 or 3 other guys to go? That's what this season's going to be judged on.
Is he a guy that's leaving because he knows there's a 5-star coming in?
Yeah. However that plays out, that's all you're looking toward. Welcome to Texas A&M for this year.
Yep.
This is what it is to be a Texas A&M fan. Just look forward.
At least the recruiting's good.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right.
That's all you can hang. That's the only banner you can hang this year is the great recruiting cycle, everybody.
Yeah.
And that's not
What's more likely?
not necessarily permanent, just for this year.
Yeah.
8-5, 8-4 at this point, or 5-7.
I think
At West Virginia, at Texas Tech, with Oklahoma State in between.
I think that West Virginia stinks, and if Spencer Sanders isn't going to play, then you don't
That's
have to.
2 wins.
You don't even have to play good football to get to 7. So I think
That's hard. Between
that's
the two,
that's
Winning
more
in
likely
Morgantown,
than
they're going to run the football.
that's more likely than going 0-3. I think. And Texas Tech had a hurt quarterback again. That TCU keeps hurting.
TCU's the quarterback killers. I don't know. That's hard. It's hard to imagine them winning all 3, but they easily could. I don't know. I guess
It does feel
West
impossible
Virginia
to
beat
imagine
this Baylor team
after
in
this
Morgantown.
game. Right, exactly. 43 points.
2 of those games are on the road. Bedlam here. Home crowd clearly means nothing. There was a time where OU was close to unbeatable at home in my youth, and they've now lost at home twice this year.
Bob
where-
Stoops won 10 Big 12 titles and lost 9 home games.
Yeah, Brent Venables he's got an offer in the first column after this year and 2 home losses. That's not, you got to win at home. Got to win at home. It's way too hard to win on the road. James Franklin at Penn State has built his entire life is owed to the ability to win at home. His road record stinks, but nobody really, you don't notice it because they win at home all the time. You got to win at home. This is twice now that they've lost games at home that were there for the taking. And this crowd today was flat-ish. It got loud at times. It was whatever. It felt like a couple of unranked teams playing. I don't know. We did this after the Texas game. I guess it feels fitting to do it again since it's the next loss. Where are you guys at with Brent Venables? How concerned are you as far as maybe this isn't going to work?
He's got the number 6 ranked recruiting class in the country right now.
Because I'm sure every OU fan's asking themselves that right now. Whether they want to admit it to themselves or not, they're wondering,
Is he the right coach? I don't know, but he's recruiting his butt off right now.
Yeah.
Now, here's the deal. How many of those recruits are going to be here and are going to sign in December and February for a team that goes 6-6? Is he going to be able to recruit and still keep those guys after a very mediocre season? That's the big question.
Yeah, I at least don't know about you guys. I made a ton of jokes as we're reading through the post-game quotes again about, the team didn't quit. That is something to be said, though, that the team still came out and played. Yeah. It's not like after, the gut punch of Texas, they've totally cratered, stuff like that. This was just Baylor made more plays than Oklahoma today. It wasn't oh my God,
they were just better.
Oklahoma folded up, quit, stuff like that. So I think that's good news for the leadership style and all that stuff at Brent Venables. He clearly doesn't have the players. Ain't it this year? If he can keep the class together, then I think everyone's more than willing to give him another 2 years at least, because you got to develop those guys. We've seen how slow bringing on the freshmen was this year. I would welcome seeing different guys playing, especially along the front 7. I would not bet on suddenly, say everyone that's in the class right now signs, boom. I would not bet on PJ Adebawore and LeBlanc and those guys being thrown into the fire Game 5 by Texas, playing a ton of snaps because of how slow these freshmen have been brought along.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I do think also that Brent needs more time. I think it is, but it's fair to also be concerned, and that this year has been poor. So we'll see what happens next year.
I'll borrow from Brent when you say it's a fair question at this point in the season. Is he the right guy for the job? I'll borrow from Brent. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll
find out. What I will say is that the benefit of the doubt is gone. I mean, he's going to have to prove it.
He gets a lot of benefit of the doubt after what
I think
the way Lincoln left and the people he took with him and the recruiting class was gutted and all that stuff.
But I guess what I mean is, next year it needs to be noticeably better. Like next year they need to be competing for the Big 12. They need to be in the Big 12 race.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be the first week of November and they're out. Like
you're on the Texas plan.
Yeah,
you're on the Texas plan.
Yeah.
Go out there. Won't have the non-conference game against Georgia to get your big moral victory, even if you lose it in the non-con. So OU needs to be unbeaten in the non-con. Up and down season the Big 12, but Texas went out there and beat K-State. They now have 2 Big 12 losses, or they're right in the thick of being the number 2 team in Arlington, right?
Yeah.
You need to be on the Texas plan, frankly. And Steve Sarkisian, before the stop at Texas, is a career bad head coach. He's able to get that thing turned around and going. That's a bad head coach. So let's see Brent Venables get that thing turned around and going, because the talent on the field, I know it's not what fits Brent Venables' system, all that stuff. It's not 5-4 bad.
Yeah, and let's address the elephant in the room too. Lincoln Riley's got USC on their way to 8-1. That's tough. That's a tough. Whether OU's not Joe C. Brent,
unless Cal comes back. Unless Cal comes back.
Unless Cal comes back, they would never, obviously, ever admit it. But they're peeking over. What's USC doing? And Lincoln's got that thing going. They're in the top 10. They're a playoff contender. That makes it worse. That makes what's happening here worse. It just does. It just does. That's just the reality of it.
I would offer this to Brent Venables, who I'm sure watches the podcast religiously, right?
He's probably, he tunes. That's his Sunday morning.
I tend to overanalyze things too much. And so when after the red-white game, Brent took 48 minutes to come into the interview room, what was he doing for those 48 minutes? He was talking to his team. He was talking to some recruits, too, there's no doubt. When he took 45 minutes after the first game and 45 minutes after the second game and almost an hour after the Nebraska game, more than an hour after the Nebraska game.
Texas game was the longest one.
Texas was the longest, but that was the loss, 49-0. What is he doing? He's talking to the team. He's got the team around him, and he's giving them a talk. Here's my advice. These are 20-year-old kids. These are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. They tune you out. They don't listen to everything you say. You can be the most impassioned speaker of all time. Nobody talks to these guys for 45 minutes. Dabo, I'm relatively certain, doesn't sit there and harp on them for 45 minutes, win or lose. Nick Saban, Lincoln Riley came in 10 minutes after the game, 10-minute cooling off period. He said his piece. He got in there, got out, and time to go back to work. 45 minutes to an hour today was, like you said, 30, 35 minutes. I think the message is being lost on some of these guys, and that's just – I'm only talking about post-game press conferences, okay? I'm not talking about every day in practice, every day in meetings.
How long do we wait after practice to wrap up?
We are always waiting a long time after practice. He comes in late for the press conferences, and again, don't get the idea of sitting here complaining about him being late. I got plenty of things to do. I don't care. What I'm talking about is what is he doing with the players. And I think at some point throughout the week, they're tuning him out, the message that he has, and it's a good message. I get fired up. I told you guys after the red-white game, I'm ready to run through a wall for the guy right now, and I don't even play for him. I just think at some point it's overkill. It becomes too much, and it becomes the players are tuning him out. The message that he has, which is, again, a good message, I think it's being lost on young ears.
Uncommon effort.
I said I wasn't going to say that, but then I said it anyway. So.
Uncommon effort going into the post-game talks. Maybe just have some common effort. Just do what everybody else does.
We're trying to figure it out because I think we all think Brent Venables is a really good football coach, and we listen to him talk in post-game, and we think like, man, it's obvious why guys would want to play for this guy. I mean that's. But then the product on Saturday
he's the man,
this year,
and he's a great guy, and everybody likes him.
Great, yeah, everybody. And so we're trying to figure out what the problem is. I think fans are trying to figure that out too. Like, what's missing? What's not?
If you're talking about, if you're saying the same thing for 11 months, and you're doing it in 60-minute snippets, it's probably falling on deaf ears.
Look, here's what it boils down to. People in college football outside of Clemson, South Carolina, do not like Dabo Swinney. If Dabo Swinney did not win, people in Clemson, South Carolina would be like, shut up. Brent Venables is doing the Dabo Light thing at the podium, and you're getting Dabo Light on the field right now in year one. And it's just year one, and that doesn't mean it's the death nail. But right now, don't need the Dabo Light if you're not going to win games. People don't have time for that.
Should I get the Royce Young? Do you guys see the Royce Young pointing it out? And we brought it up before. The first year, here it is. The first year records, right, for all these coaches. Saban 7-6, Alabama. Kirby Smart 8-5 at Georgia. Dabo 7-4 at Clemson. Heupel 7-6 last year at Tennessee. Bob Stoops 7-5 at OU.
Mm-hmm.
That is reality. That's a good point. That's 5 pretty different situations for all those guys.
Yeah.
They all didn't come right in and dominate right away.
Yeah.
We got a little spoiled on or maybe irrational expectations off what Lincoln did in his first year,
Transition was
where they
seamless.
should have probably won the national title that year if he didn't botch the Rose Bowl. He deserves more credit for that, for doing that in the first year, especially with how he barely had that much even coordinator experience. He was a young guy. But yeah, he needs more time. I think we all agree on that. But again, at the same time, disappointing season.
I heard somebody say today, hey, we weren't complaining about Stoops for going 7-5. Guys, that was 3 straight losing seasons.
2014, this guy was fine.
5 years in a row, from 94 to 99, 5 years in a row, they didn't have a winning record. So, no, 7-5 was a breath of fresh air when Bob Stoops came here in 1999. That's not comparable.
Of that list you mentioned, the one that I think is the most similar situation to Brent Venables is Kirby Smart, because if you take
from Bama,
if you take the Riley roster after the transfers, I haven't looked at this, but that's probably similar to where Rick had Georgia, just because not devoid of talent at Georgia, but it wasn't elite talent, and you see what Kirby's done now, right? So again, like I think we've tried to say multiple times, this isn't the death knell on Brent Venables, the head coach, but for this year, failure for Oklahoma standards.
It is, and we all think that Brent Venables. We all still think it's probably going to end up working, but this year, how could it not make you kind of question if it's going to or not? But 3 weeks left for Oklahoma. That whole maybe chaos will happen. Chaos is kind of happening that they needed. It's kind of happening, but they lost again, so it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And we'll see. This was another good step toward the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. So I think that probably 6-6 is what needs to happen to get them there. And
December 27th.
December 27th, Christmas in Arizona.
Phoenix, baby.
Phoenix. A little bit of that hot sun life. Maybe where we're headed. Then you got to win one more game.
They got to win one more game.
They got to win one more game, though.
We're not making any bowl plans just yet.
Bedlam's on the Ocho. You heard it here first.
Yeah, boy, football was bad in Oklahoma today. Oklahoma State also bad. Bedlam's going to be sad right now. Bedlam is sad football.
It'll be fine. It'll be a fun game.
West Virginia next in Morgantown next weekend. I'll be hanging back for that one, but these guys will be up there in country roads. Take me home. Early thoughts?
Too early.
I don't know. West Virginia stinks.
Here's my thought. Early flight Sunday. So I'm already needing to bank sleep now.
Yep.
11 a.m. in Morgantown next week. We'll see what Brent Venables and all the squad has to say. AllSooners.com, the place for all the coverage from this ball game. Sleep on it. Let it wash over you. Hit it Sunday. Check out all the game stories, reaction from Brent Venables, Levy, Roof, players, not Dylan Gabriel though, and game highlights, game stories. All of that stuff there for you on AllSooners.com. Thank you so much for listening, watching, all that good stuff. We'll be back with the Wednesday show, previewing the West Virginia game, getting ready for the Sooners and the Mountaineers, the third to last game of the regular season. Flying through, already 3/4 of the way.
Yep.
Now it's been a very weird and challenging season, but here we are.
Time flies when you never sleep.
On the home stretch now. Three weeks to go. So thank you guys so much for listening, watching.
I'm just glad we got through without me laughing anymore.
The first 5 minutes was just wiped out on that, but it's all right. He went back to his disease sandwich. Thank you so much for listening, watching. Again, back Wednesday, wrapping up the press conferences and getting ready for the West Virginia game next Saturday in Morgantown. You can catch that one on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, wherever you get your podcast. If you have an Amazon-enabled device, you say, Alexa, play the All Sooners podcast. It's also posted on our website, allsooners.com. Click on the playlist on your phone, your tablet, or your computer, and watch all the shows on Who's YouTube page, John Hoover Media. That's it. We'll see you back on Wednesday from our respective homes. For Ryan Chapman and John Hoover, if Ryan makes it to their disease, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll catch you guys next time.
Good job.